So the archons looked at the work of Draco and said, this is good, but it's far from perfect. And an archon, a prime archon, rose up named Solon. And Solon said, okay, we can make this better. We can improve this. First of all, we want to have a new council. And all of the citizens of Athens, so all of these 30 to 60,000 free male property-owning adults are able to go at any time to any public meeting and sit and listen. They weren't able to participate, they weren't able to vote, but they were able to sit and listen. This was a huge change. This was already beginning this first stretch of pulling the polity into the people, pulling the political system into the people. So the people are now able to look at the political system in a more open way, and very important, it was open to all classes. So no longer was it just the aristocracy or just the nobility or just the wealthy propertied class. It was now all Athenians who were able to take part in this. The Areopagus remains, but it is diminished in power. So again, the Areopagus, that's from the former archons. Well, that remains in place, but it now is turned into a judicial body that has a very limited focus. All they are able to do are consider cases of murder, that is willful homicide, and cases of sacrilege, which were the two remaining capital offenses, the two things that everybody agreed on were capital offenses. So they had decided, okay, not everybody needs to get killed for stealing a cabbage or for stealing a coin or for trespassing on your neighbor's property and so on. Draco said, well, they asked Draco, why did you give the same penalty for petty theft as you gave for murder? He said, well, because the proper penalty for petty theft is execution, and it's the same penalty for murder because there is nothing beyond execution. That's just as high as it can go. So he had a very tough view of life, and not everybody agreed with that, and the citizens wanted change, and that's why Solon starts to reshape things. The boule had 100 citizens, or boule, had 100 citizens from each of the four tribes. At this point, we're still with four tribes. So 100 citizens from each of the four tribes come together. Again, why do we need to do that? Because these tribes still have strong tribal identity. The people still strongly identify that with their tribe. Therefore, if you have leadership coming from each of the tribes by mandate, then all of the people will feel that they are equally represented. So we start to see the beginnings of, again, if not a democratic system, definitely a representative system. It becomes increasingly representative. The people are able to see what's going on. They have some input in the sense that the people who are making these decisions come from their own ranks. So there's a very different sense of what's happening under Solon. His probably, and not even probably, clearly his most important contribution was another body called the ecclesia. I talked about that earlier. The ecclesia, this body of 6,000, around 6,000, it varied considerably depending on the circumstances, but it was around 6,000 people. And these people were taken from the citizens. They were taken from every class, and everyone had equal voice. It didn't matter if you were someone of the remember, citizens still had to be property owners. So we're not talking about beggars. We're not talking about the person who is homeless. Okay, they were not represented. But everybody who was propertied, and property doesn't necessarily mean they were a landowner, but it meant that they had enough property, they had enough wealth that they could put together a military outfit. So they, all of these people then were the assembly, the 6,000, and the 6,000 were given new power. The 6,000 were given the power to start making laws. So they took these old draconian laws and they started to say, okay, the law itself doesn't really meet the needs of the people as well as it should. And certainly the penalty is not fitting to this particular infraction. So they began to rebuild the draconian law into a new written code that was more representative of the interests and the needs of the people. It was open to all citizens, and again, all citizens. And this is really the core of what we call the first democracy. Unfortunately, it didn't last long either. In 565, a guy named Peisistratus. Now, Peisistratus is the first tyrant that we have in record in Athens. But Peisistratus was not a bad guy. He rose to power, and certainly there's got to be some difficult political machinations that go on in order to be able to do that. But he came to power not with the intent of being evil or overthrowing everybody, but he wanted to bring more power to the common peoples, and that's what he did. He actually started to bring more of the commoners, if you will, into the higher positions within the system. He begins to appoint more people and actually allow more people to be elected from among the people. So it isn't all just by lot. Now it's actually becoming a little bit more of the people's choice. Although he came from the aristocracy himself, he favored the common people over the aristocracy. A lot of historians will say, well, that's just because there's a lot more of the common people, and by getting them on his side, they were able to perpetuate his position as tyrant or his tyranny. And that's possibly true. You can believe whichever you wish, I guess. There's definitely no clear evidence one way or the other as to what his opinions or his beliefs were of why he did what he did. But the effect is very clear. The effect is he created So this is what's interesting. By creating a system or becoming this monarch, if you will, this tyrant, at the same time he's building the people up politically to make them ready to become a true democracy. And by the time he is done, he has been exiled and re-elected as tyrant twice. And when he dies, he actually is a very popular leader among the people, and he is given great respect. And in fact, his two sons follow him as tyrant. So the people obviously didn't hate him. They actually chose to follow his sons. So this is actually starting to smack of monarchy. We're starting to see kind of a monarchical system where the title is passed down son to son and so on. But it really stops there. Now, a very interesting thing that we need to remember about Peisistratus is his father. I haven't talked about his father, but his father is a very, very important Greek person. In fact, one of the most important Greek people that you'll ever have heard of from this period. His name is Hippocrates. Hippocrates, the Hippocratic Oath. He was a well-known physician, and he actually describes the responsibilities of a physician towards his patients and develops what now all doctors have to take this oath upon receiving their medical certificate, at least in this country, and that is the Hippocratic Oath. So a lot of interesting stuff around this guy and his sons. When his second son, Hippias, named after kind of sideways after Hippocrates, was exiled in 510, democracy comes back to Athens.